And welcome back inside the home office, and welcome to this week's edition of NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. I'm Craig D'Amico. There is no time to waste. We just had games on Saturday, Monday, and we're right back at it 3 days later for a Saturday slate coming up this weekend. So for some teams who didn't have buys, we're talking 4 games in 8 days. That's a lot of NEC Women's Basketball packed into just a little over a week. And there's been lots of moving and shaking in the NEC women's basketball standings as well as we move closer to the halfway point of the conference season. Coming up on today's show, we'll chat with one of the top shot blockers in the NEC. We'll reveal our top 3 stars of the week and look ahead to this weekend, including a Thursday night TV game and much, much more. But first, let's catch you up to speed on this week's top headlines. We start with a 3-point shot. And we start with headline number 1, the Lemoyne Dolphins. We talked them up last week. And when we last left the Fins, they were standing at 3-0, one of the best starts all time for a first-year program in NEC play. And they were in action for a pair of games trying to get to 4-0 and 5-0 against Central Connecticut State and St. Francis U. The Central Connecticut State game was an ESPN Plus and Yes Network broadcast. So the Dolphins, with their hot start, were in the national spotlight. And this game was back and forth through 3 quarters. Lemoyne took a 7-point lead at the end of the third, and that was the largest lead of the game at that point. The lead never went further than 7, swinging back and forth between both sides. Now, Central got to within 1 point. They cut the deficit to just a single point, 43-42, following a Samora Watson bucket with about 5.5 to go. But the Dolphins would go on a 12-0 run to close out the fourth quarter and close out the win. They would go on to win it 57-44 to improve to 4-0 in NEC play. Latoya Baker, our guest from a couple weeks ago, a monster game. 17 points, 15 rebounds, her 6th double-double of the season. Sierra Lennon knocked down 4 threes, but a pair of clutch ones during that final fourth quarter 12-0 run. She finished with 13 points on the night. And we mentioned Latoya Baker, the double-double, the 15 rebounds. As a team, Lemoyne dominated the glass. They out-rebounded Central 49-31, a key factor in the Dolphins' win. Then 2 days later, they were in the bus and up to Loretto. Lemoyne made their maiden voyage to DeGaulle Arena to take on the 12-time NEC champion St. Francis Red Flash. The Dolphins battling the Red Flash and the mystique and aura of that gym that has seen so much NEC women's basketball greatness over the decades. Now, the game started similar to the Central game from 2 days earlier. Both teams were trading blows back and forth, but a pivotal 12-4 run in the final 5.5 of the first half gave St. Francis a 32-24 halftime lead. St. Francis was able to keep their distance for most of the second half, but a 7-0 run by Lemoyne in the final moments tied the game at 52 with 52 seconds remaining. After a Lemoyne foul, Destiny Ward connected on a pair of free throws. Sydney Lusher for the Dolphins would miss a key 3 with 12 seconds left that would have put the Dolphins in front. SFU would then go on to make one more free throw. They would go on to win it 55-52, knocking Lemoyne off the ranks of the NEC unbeatens. Destiny Ward scored a game high for St. Francis, 18 points with 7 rebounds. The 18 points, one shy of her career high. She coming off a 30-point game the outing before against LIU. Kendall Carruthers contributed 15 points, 6 rebounds, and Latoya Baker led Lemoyne with 14 and 5. You know, Lemoyne head coach Mary Grimes, she talked about the game afterwards, saying St. Francis dominated the glass, and that was one of the differences. They weren't quite scoring like they needed to, but she mentioned how this was a learning experience for her team. First time making that quick turnaround from home game, get on the bus, trek up to Altoona and play a game 2 days later against Lemoyne. So this whole process, learning experience, something they'll, tuck it to their back pocket, and it will certainly help them going forward. Now, historically, the 2013 Quinnipiac Bobcats still remain now as the last NEC team to run the table, go the distance, and go unbeaten in NEC play for a full season. Lemoyne falls from 4-0 to 4-1, tying them with first place Sacred Heart, a team who they just beat last week and a team who rebounded from that loss with an 83-63 victory over Wagner in the Pioneers lone game of this past weekend. Now, headline number 2, you could hear the John Williams Jaws theme music coming. That's the Sharks. They are on the move. You know, LIU, they're playing without their head coach. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Renee Haynes on maternity leave, associate coach Dunn filling in as the acting head coach. And this past weekend, they were without their leading scorer as well. Ashley Austin missed both games against Central and against SFU. But despite all that subtraction, usually you subtract the coach, you subtract the leading scorer. Usually that's not a good thing. But despite all that subtraction, despite the hurdles, despite the adversity, the Sharks swept both games. And now they've won 3 in a row, and the Sharks are lurking near the top of the NEC standings. Sophomore Mariah Elohim stepped up with a 17-point and 14-point outing, respectively, in the 2 games. Amaya Dowdy also continued her tear with a double-double, 6 blocks as well against SFU, then had 13 and 7 with 4 blocks in an ESPN Plus TV game victory over Central Connecticut State, 57-50. You saw both those games. The Blue Devils were in the spotlight twice over the weekend against Lemoyne and against LIU, falling short in both those games. But it was nice to see some of the young talent that Central has. They certainly have something positive going on in New Britain. But as for LIU, again, 3-game winning streak now. They've managed to completely turn it around despite a lot of subtraction on their bench. And how have they done it? Well, from what I've seen, they're playing sound team defense, and they have a deep team. They play 8-9 deep. They have plenty of contributors, and that's not something that they've had in years past. There's always been, for the last couple seasons, transfer portal, all that, a lot of year-to-year turnover. Hard to build a core and get consistency when you have that much in and out. But this is now a core group that has been together for an off season. The chemistry is starting to come together, and the Sharks have looked sharp. And now, with this 3-game win streak, they will ride that into this weekend, where they will get a second chance against Sacred Heart coming up on Thursday. You know, they fell to the Pioneers 67-56 back on January the 13th, but you can almost make a case that in that loss, Dowdy having her 9 blocks, the team battling in that game, that was maybe the spark that got them to and propelled them to this current run that they're on. So it makes it all that more intriguing to see what happens this second go around. What have the Sharks learned? How have they improved in this second crack against Sacred Heart? We will see how far the Sharks have come over these last 2 weeks when they go head-to-head with the Pioneers coming up this weekend. We'll have more on that game coming up later on in the show. And finally, we round out our top 3 headlines by checking out where they stand in the NEC standings. Lemoyne and Sacred Heart now tied atop the pack at 4-1. Lemoyne has the head-to-head tiebreaker for the top seed at the moment. However, Lemoyne and Sacred Heart will play again on February the 3rd. 1 game back, you have FDU and LIU, both teams 3-2. Those 2 teams will meet coming up soon on February the 1st, and LIU has won 3 in a row, but so have the Merrimack Warriors. We told you don't overreact. They were 0-3. Now they're 3-3. Merrimack maybe playing the best basketball, best offense in the league right now. They were looking for some offense, and they certainly got some contributions this weekend. We'll have more on that in a moment. They went from 0-3 to 3-3, and the Warriors are right there in the mix. Central, they are headed the other direction. We mentioned dropped a pair of tough TV games this past weekend. They were 2-0. Now 2-3. They've lost their last 3 in a row. St. Francis and Stonehill, they're both 2-4. They play this week in an NEC TV game. We'll have more on that coming up. And Wagner rounds out the list at 1-4. It's time now for the top 3 stars from this week in NEC action. And we start at number 3. It's Amaya Dowdy of the LIU Sharks. The junior forward to Brooklyn by way of UMass Lowell is a player on the rise. It all stems from that game 2 weeks ago against Sacred Heart. 5 blocks in the first quarter, 9 blocks overall in the game. This week, first double-double with LIU, 13 points, 10 rebounds against St. Francis, and she followed that up with 13 and 7 against Central. A combined 10 blocks In the 2 games over this weekend, she's leading the league, averaging 2 blocks per game. Our second star, Kaylee Thomas from the Merrimack Warriors. We talked about how Merrimack was missing some offense. We talked with their coach earlier this season. They wanted offense. They were doing well on defense, doing well rebounding. Offense was the one thing missing. Well, insert Kaylee Thomas. After sitting out non-conference play due to injury, the grad student has gotten back into rhythm, making up for lost time, and so is the Merrimack offense. Kiki scored 24 points at Wagner, going 5 for 10 from behind the arc, and she followed that up with 19 points on Monday at interstate rival Stonehill. That's a 21.5-point average for the 2 games last weekend, shooting 48% from the field and 44% from behind the arc. Again, the Warriors have won their last 3 in a row. But our top star from this past week is a freshman guard, Kendall Carruthers from the St. Francis Red Flash, who is continuing an incredible rookie year. And quite frankly, I'll be honest, we need to start talking about her more on the show. Hopefully, we could have her on soon because she is playing some fantastic basketball right now, and she played her best in St. Francis' biggest weekend, averaging 22.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. She had a 30-point game against LIU, the third 30-point game in the NEC this year, the most points scored by any rookie in the league this year, and the most points scored by a St. Francis player since 2019. In St. Francis' comeback win against Lemoyne, she was a key factor at 15 points, 6 rebounds to help give the previously unblemished Dolphins their first league setback. Carruthers is currently 4th in the league in scoring, averaging 12.8 points per game, and is a 3-time NEC Rookie of the Week. Kendall Carruthers, our top star for week 3 of NEC action. Now it's time to chat with another one of our top stars, though, Amaya Dowdy of the LIU Sharks, set to join us in this week's Open Mic. Joining us now here on NEC Women's Basketball on the Run, someone who knows a thing or two about throwing a block party. She's been swatting away shots all year long from the LIU Sharks. It's Amaya Dowdy. Amaya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Craig.
Now, let's talk about the Sharks. The team is hot right now, won 3 in a row, just swept St. Francis and Central this past weekend. So what's been working so well?
I feel like we've been really focusing on ourselves and like our own strengths individually and as a team, and like, focusing on our individual strengths and putting it all together and just making it all work out good.
Now, we know your coach is on leave. You're without your leading scorer this past weekend. Usually subtraction is not a good thing, but somehow you guys have managed to overcome that and not skip a beat. So what does that say about the team that you throw all these hurdles at you and you're still able to overcome it?
I feel like as a team, we can handle adversity really well. All the cards are against us. Like, people talk saying like, they're not going to win with all these, different factors. And I felt like we took the adversity and just embraced it. And then we came out and just did what we did, like, focused on our strengths, like we said.
Yeah, it's been great to watch. Let's talk about you for a second and you're kind of joining the team. How was it and when was it that you kind of fell in love with the game of basketball back when you were younger?
When I was younger, I would say about like age 7, I played like travel league back home. And after that, like, I just fell in love with the game.
Now, I saw in high school you played a little bit of volleyball in addition to basketball. So I'm wondering, like, how did maybe the skills of timing jumps maybe help with your shot blocking and rebounding and on the basketball court?
I would say, like I picked up volleyball just for fun during my high school season. And I feel like, yeah, maybe that helped a little. But like, I played basketball before volleyball, and I feel like that really translated well into volleyball. But yeah.
So I got to know what's the secret to a good block? If I'm like a young kid at like a clinic or something, and I'm looking for some tips on how to be a good shot blocker, what would your advice be?
Say it's all about, timing and body positioning, not jumping too early or jumping into, the person you're defending. It's all about, it takes time, practice, just, timing, body control. Yeah.
Now we know you've been doing your thing prior to LIU and even in non-conference play this year, but I think what kind of you jumped out on the page to a lot of people was the 5 blocks in the first quarter against Sacred Heart. Did someone come to you after that first quarter be like, hey, you got 5 blocks? Did you know about that? Did you surprise yourself?
Honestly, I just like when I play, I'm just like, just worry about winning, and doing
Sure.
us as a team, like, winning the game. I didn't realize I had that many blocks until the end of the game, to be
Wow.
honest. Yeah.
And again, you kind of use that to kind of keep the momentum going this past weekend. I wonder, your team visited Chicago State, which is kind of a preview for the league for next year. So what was that trip like? Did you see any good, like, hotels or food places or anything to prepare the rest of the league for next year?
Um, Honestly, Chicago State, it was really cold.
That's what everybody
You
says.
yeah, the wind, Windy City. We spent a lot of time inside, the hotel. We didn't really venture out into the city, and like we got stuck for a while
Wow.
trying to get back to New York. Yeah.
Wow. So rest of the NEC, get ready for that home court advantage out there for Chicago State. So I'm wondering, your journey, we mentioned you had other stops before coming to LIU. So what was it that made you want to come to Brooklyn and be a Shark and be a part of this team?
I would say, the coaches, the program felt like it was heading in the right direction. They were always seen as like, the underdogs. And like, I feel like my whole life I've been seen as an underdog. So I felt like that was a really good fit for me, to try to prove everyone wrong.
Absolutely. And big games coming up, a rematch with Sacred Hearts that you just saw them, had the big game against them a couple of weeks ago, and then Lemoyne as well. So what are some keys to success coming up for this weekend?
Like I said, we're really focusing our own strengths. So, like we'll scout the other team, but like us, we're focusing on, not turning the ball over so much and just like, defensive stops and just taking, possession by possession, really, playing the game at our own pace.
And is the team kind of feeling like you kind of like hitting the stride, like you kind of have something going right now? Are you kind of feeling that vibe in the locker room with the team?
Yes, I'm feeling that vibe. Like, I feel like we're gonna go in tomorrow and like I said, do what we do, but like, better than execute better than what we did last time we played Sacred Heart. Feel like we learned a lot from that game. Even though like it was a close game, I feel like we're gonna, go the extra mile this game.
Looking very much looking forward to it. And we're gonna get you out here with the final five questions. These are quick hitters. So first thing that comes to mind, just let it out. All right.
Okay.
All right. Favorite color,
Blue.
favorite snack or junk food.
Favorite snack, I like the white cheddar cheeses.
Okay, great choice. Besides a shark, what is your favorite sea creature?
Sea creature, I like dolphins.
Okay, there you go. If we took a survey of your teammates, what trait or adjective do you think they would use to describe you?
I would say either unique or funny.
Okay, all right. And what is the key for LIU to win a championship in 2024?
Key is just, grit and hard work and perseverance.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate the chat and best luck up this weekend and the rest of the season.
Thank you.
You can catch Amaya and the Sharks. A rematch with Sacred Heart Thursday, 7 p.m. on NEC Front Row. And check out this full episode of NEC Women's Basketball on the Run, available now wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, we thank Amaya for joining us. Best of luck to her and the Sharks going forward. But now it's time to turn our attention to Stat Chat. And in Stat Chat this week, we want to talk about home court advantage, because so far, home court has mattered in the NEC this year. Home teams in conference play are 16-8 so far this season. They were 15-5 before road teams just won 3 out of the 4 games on Monday, but still a 667 win percentage in conference play in the first quarter of the season, first third of the season, almost halfway through the season, is pretty impressive. Now, there are 4 teams that haven't won a road game all season this year in the NEC. And this is a big difference from last year when home teams were only 13-11 in the first 24 games. This year, 16-8. So a little bit of an improvement. And, we talked with Mary Grimes. She mentioned, playing at home on Saturday, the quick turnaround, heading on the bus, going all the way up to Altoona Monday. That was a big challenge that Lemoyne was facing for the first time. We talked about it with Amaya moments ago in our interview. She said, the travel to Chicago State, it was cold. They had problems getting back. All this logistical stuff with travel and whatnot, that has quite the impact. Maybe not as much as the X's and O's on the court, but still all this logistical stuff when it comes to playing on the road, it's important. So that means getting one or two or maybe even 3 home games come March in the NEC tournament, meaning you could sleep in your own bed and not have to leave campus on the road to a championship. That makes home court and getting home court all that more important, which makes the battle for a top 4 seed in this second half of conference play coming up all that more important and all that more interesting to watch. So far, home court has mattered in conference play. We'll see if that trend continues. That's the subject of this week's Stat Chat. Now it's time to take a look at what is coming up on tap. As we mentioned at the top of the show, no wasted time. We're getting right back at it Thursday, Saturday this week in NEC play, and it all starts on Thursday, 6 p.m. ESPN Plus from Easton, Massachusetts. It's an NEC TV game, St. Francis and Stonehill. Both teams are coming in tied 2-4 in the standings. Now, SFU won both meetings last year, but both meetings were tight. A 1-point overtime win for the Red Flash in Loretto, and then a 4-point win last time in Massachusetts. In the overtime game, Sharon Hayward, our guest from last week, missed a game-tying free throw, potential game-tying free throw, and then missed what would have been a game-winning 3 at the end. So no doubt that probably would be in her mind as she looks to atone for that and have another monster outing against the Red Flash coming up on Thursday. Also in the league, we got LIU and Sacred Heart. We talked about it earlier, a chance, almost like a measuring stick game for LIU. They come in having won 3 in a row, and they get another shot at the reigning champs, where the loss to Sacred Heart just 2 weeks ago in Brooklyn, you can make a case that might have been what sparked this run for LIU. So getting a chance to test themselves against the reigning champs, who are coming off a 20-point win at Wagner. No doubt that first conference loss to Lemoyne, they must have stewed about that for a little bit, and they went out and had something to prove in that Wagner game. They did. We'll see what happens. LIU Sacred Heart, the rematch in Fairfield coming up on Thursday night. Merrimack will be taking on Lemoyne. Merrimack is the other team that has won 3 in a row in conference play with LIU after an 0-3 start. And during these 3 games, again, they found their offense. 3 straight games of 70-plus points, shooting 41% on average in the 3 games combined from the floor. They're on a roll. They're taking on a Lemoyne team that's coming off their first loss. We said it last week about Sacred Heart. How is Sacred Heart going to come back and answer their first conference loss? They did by winning 20 points. So how will Lemoyne answer their first conference loss against the Merrimack team that they already beat 2 weeks ago, 74-59 back on January 13th? Very intriguing rematch. Can Lemoyne atone for their loss? Can Merrimack continue this offensive role? They're set to collide on Thursday night. And also we'll see Central Connecticut and FDU. The NEC's newest head coaches, I guess you could say that, Stephanie Gately and Wei Vini. Central, they've lost 3 in a row since their 2-0 start, back-to-back TV games this past week. Meanwhile, FDU, they've won 2 straight and 3 of their last 4. And then the action continues on Saturday afternoon. Lemoyne will be at LIU. LIU facing the 2 teams this weekend that are tied for first place, games against Sacred Heart and Lemoyne, so a chance for LIU to further make a statement. Central will take on Wagner. St. Francis will be in Massachusetts to take on Merrimack, a playoff rematch from last year's quarterfinal. And our feature game on Saturday is FDU and Sacred Heart, the NEC championship game rematch that we've been waiting for. Now, Sacred Heart defeated FDU 72-60 last March to claim their 4th tournament title. Sacred Heart won all 3 meetings last year against FDU. Now, granted, FDU is a much different roster, much different look this year. Sacred Heart has a lot of the same faces, and with the talent that they've had, you can make a case they've gotten only stronger. But we will see what happens in this matchup. The first time last year's finalists are going head-to-head. Watch out for Olivia Tucker. OT could be a player to watch in this one. In the last 2 meetings last year against FDU, she averaged 18.5 points, shot 48%. She likes shooting against this FDU team, so maybe it's the uniforms. I don't know what it is, but she performed at a high level in the last 2 games against the Knights. We'll see what happens coming up on Saturday. So that'll do it for this week's show. I'm Craig D'Amico. Enjoy the games this weekend, everyone, and we'll see you right back here next week on NEC Women's Basketball on the Run.